At the beginning of the drama, we see the drama's female lead, Gia, wearing a very expensive dress. In the background, Gia says that all girls in the world want to live a princess life, and she too had the same dream. But when she got it, she considers it more of a nightmare than a dream. Then, we are shown what happened in Gia's life 2 days ago. Gia's mother used to work as a milk delivery girl. Her mother is not keeping well. Therefore, Gia has dropped out of school. Her mother asked her to go to school. But now, Gia only wants to help her mother. Gia takes her pendant and, wearing a strange wig, sets off for the delivery. On the way, she meets 2 children. While talking to them, Gia's landlord asks her to pay the electricity bill. Gia says she will pay it later. Then, Gia rides her scooter. Then, 3 girls stop her. Just then, Gia's childhood best friend, Chen Wu, arrives and rescues Gia from them. After Gia leaves, Chen tells them to stay away from Gia. On the other side, we see the drama's main lead, Li. He is in a cafe, coding on his laptop. At the table next to him, a couple is arguing. The boy is rudely talking to his girlfriend, but the girlfriend politely tells him to break up. Then, Li arrives and tells the boy to break up with his girlfriend. But the boy also speaks rudely to Li. Li then kicks the boy out of the cafe. Just then, Gia is coming by on her scooter, and the boy falls in front of her. Gia loses her balance and falls, breaking all her milk bottles. She begs the boy for money, but he tells Li to give her the money. So, Gia grabs Li's collar, but then she slips on the milk bottle, causing her to fall down with Li, and an accidental kiss happens between the two. Meanwhile, Gia's pendant falls into Li's bag. Just then, Li's best friend Chen arrives and is shocked to see them together. Li quickly rubs his lips and looks at himself in the car mirror. Gia asks him to give her money, but Li ignores her. Chen says he's the young master of the Han group, and she shouldn't talk to Li like that, and Chen gives her the money. Gia takes the money and is about to leave when she remembers that her pendant fell into Li's bag. By then, she sees Chen taking Li away in his car. Li is looking at his face. Chen asks, "Isn't he allergic now?" Li says, he doesn't know, but he hasn't had any allergies yet. We then see a school bus carrying students. They are on their way to military training. Here, a girl is talking to her best friend, that she likes Li and no one else matches with him. Now, the milk hasn't been delivered yet, so Gia's mom gets a call from school. She's ironing clothes. When she realizes the milk hasn't been delivered, she quickly rushes out to find Gia, forgetting to turn off the iron. Meanwhile, Chen and Li are driving towards the school bus, as they too are going to the school's military training. They look back where Gia is following their car, looking very strange. The school bus also suddenly stops, and some masked men hijack it. All the students panic. Just then, Chen's car pulls up. The men tell them to get out of the car, and Gia comes in from behind, and they also put her on the bus as well. Gia says she just came to deliver milk. The men react as if they were waiting for the milk. Chen tells Gia he'll give her 1 million yuan if she helps him call the police. Gia gets excited, but she asks Li to give her pendant first. Li says he doesn't know anything about the pendant. Then, Gia says it fell out of her bag while they were kissing. Then, all the students are lined up and asked to call their parents for money. All the students belong to very wealthy families. They all agree to pay, but Gia says she's poor and doesn't have any money, so they should let her go. The masked men tell her to leave. Gia begins to speak softly to Li and Chen. Will they really give her 1 million rupees? Chen says yes. Gia begins to speak louder. Li has her pendant in her bag. She won't leave without it. Then, they ask Li to give her back her pendant. Li comes to Gia and says he'll give her 5 million rupees if she calls the police. And Gia imagines she'll pretend to faint, and when the masked men approach her, she'll grab them, knock them down, and snatch their gun, becoming a hero in front of everyone. But in reality, she faints, grabs Li's hands instead of the gunman's, and says she snatched the gun, but nothing like that happens. Here, Gia's mother calls Gia, and she walks aimlessly down the main road, looking for her, when a truck comes and hits her. Here, the goons grab Gia too, and all the students become angry at Gia. Li tries to approach Gia. Just then, one of the men's phone rings, and when he speaks on the phone, everyone recognizes him. Li removes his mask and reveals it was their teacher, who was performing an act for their military training. Everyone relaxes. Gia asks Li to give him money, but Li says he hasn't done anything. Why should he give him money? Gia starts arguing with him. Just then, Gia receives a call from Chen Wu, who tells her about her mother's accident. Li also receives a call, and he also leaves. Here, Chen and Gia's other best friend, Xiao, arrives at the hospital. Then, the wife of the chairman of the Han group, who is Li's mother, arrives. She says to them that Gia's mother signed the organ donation papers and that her kidney was a match with the father of Li. Chen becomes angry and asks Mrs. Han to leave, but then the doctor arrives and tells them to attend to the patient. After that, Gia's mother promises to donate her kidney to Mrs. Han, but in return, she must keep Gia with them. She must help her study and get her married. Mrs. Han promises Gia's mom that she will keep Gia with her. Then, Gia's mom dies there. Then, Li arrives, followed by Gia. Now, seeing her mother's dead body, she begins to cry and says they had to find her father as well. Seeing Lee, she tells him that because of him, she hasn't even been able to see her mother one last time. Then, Lee's mom promises her that from now on, she is her mother and will always be with her. After that, we see Gia, Xiao, and Feng are together. When she returns home, she finds her house on fire, and the owner of the house starts scolding her, asking her to pay. Just then, Lee's mom arrives and pays Gia all of her money. She takes Gia to her home, which is a huge villa. There are several servants. Next, we see Gia, who is sitting quietly in her room. Then, Lee comes in and gives her a check, telling her to leave with a blank check. Gia says she should have knocked before entering. Lee says there's a restriction on children locking the door in this house. Gia says she doesn't belong to his family and won't stay there. She'll go back. She doesn't even need the check. That night, Lee is looking at Gia's pendant and falls asleep with it in his hand. The same night, Gia sneaks into his room and tries to take her pendant. Just then, Lee wakes up and is about to get up, and they kiss again. Then, Gia runs away. But Lee says he'll have to lock the door from now on, and says maybe his allergies have gone away. But here, we're not told about his allergies. The next day, Gia arrives wearing a very expensive dress and looking incredibly beautiful. She decides to leave the house after breakfast. Here, Lee stares at her because she looks so beautiful. Then, Ms. Han tells Gia that she will go to Lee's school and will use his surname. Lee says, what will he tell his classmates? He gained a sister overnight. Ms. Han says she has thought about it too. That's why she will tell everyone at school that Gia is Lee's fiancé. Hearing this, both are shocked. Lee refuses to believe it. Ms. Han says, the expensive telescope you ordered is cancelled, and now you won't get it. Hearing this, Lee agrees, because he wanted his own telescope. Ms. Han tells Gia that her mother made her promise to let Gia study at this school. That's why Gia will have to study well. Gia agrees to stay here for her mother's sake. Then, Lee's mom asks Lee to take Gia to school with him. Lee is forced to take her with him. Then we see both of them in school uniform. Gia is ready for a new chapter in her life. Next, Gia and Lee are going to school together. Lee warns Gia not to talk to him at school. Gia says, I have no interest in talking to him. Lee tells Gia to call him Master Han, but Gia refuses. Lee gets angry and says she will have to be his maid. Then, the bodyguard tells Lee that Ms. Han sent him to protect Gia. Lee says, but he is the young master. Gia is not even his family. Then, they arrive at the school. Gia gets out of the car, and Lee loudly declares, this is my maid. With that, he walks into the school. Gia is unable to say anything, so Gia ignores him. Then, she looks around the school. Her mother's dream was to get her into this school. Now, she will study well. Then, Xiao arrives. Gia asks her, what are you doing there? Xiao says, she told her dad to change schools. That's why she'll be living with Gia from now on. And she also wants to make handsome male friends. They both arrive at the school. Here, we come to know that their class has two sections. Section A is all bullies and rich, and Section B is all innocent students. Here, a student from Section A, named Gao, bullies and even beats a student from Section B. Gia is about to go and stop him, but Xiao tells her to stay away from Section A and not get involved in any fights. She sees another student making another student do too much work. Gia gets very angry at this. Then, they both go to class. Gia introduces herself to everyone, but everyone ignores her. Xiao tells her that it's just like that. She should ignore them too. Then, Xiao says that today, Lee expelled a girl from school because she tried to kiss him. Gia asks, how does she know all this? Xiao says, she keeps track of all the news. Just then, the principal arrives to introduce their new teacher, Mr. Tien. He says that their class teacher, Mr. Mai, is not well. That's why Mr. Tien will be taking the class in her place. If anyone needs help, they can seek help from another teacher. Then, all the students start laughing. Mr. Tien is a little embarrassed here. Then, the same boy named Jian comes into the class. He was injured on his face. The principal asks him, who bullied him? But he denies it and says he fell down the stairs. But Gia stands up to tell the truth. But Xiao pulls her skirt and tells her to sit down. But she pulls her skirt so hard that it rips. After the teacher leaves, Xiao fixes her skirt. Gia asks her why she needed to pull it. Xiao says she doesn't want to get into any fights, so that's why she stopped her. Then, Xiao fixes her skirt. But when she leaves the class, everyone is staring at her because Xiao didn't pin her skirt properly. And Gia's skirt looks really weird from behind. Here, Lee and the bodyguard are waiting for Gia. Lee says he'll go home alone. The bodyguard says he can't go without Gia. Lee says they were Lee's bodyguards. Just then, a girl comes and grabs Lee and starts crying. and Jia sees them. The girl cries and begs him not to expel her from school. She's just expressing her feelings to Lee. Then, security escorts the girl out of the school. Jia gets into the car angrily. She doesn't like this at all. She was still very angry when she came home. Then, Ms. Han tells Lee to try to convince Jia, but Lee refuses. Ms. Han insists she won't give him his telescope either, so Lee agrees and goes to Jia's room. Jia says he needs manners. He should knock before entering a girl's room. And how does he behave? He can never be a master like that. Why did he do this to that girl? Lee says he's the young master of the Han family, so she can't talk to him like that, and that the girl was harassing him. Everyone has different ideas for solving their problems. Then, Lee warns Jia that he will never let her stay in this family. He then leaves. The next day, Jia is in class at school. Tien is taking class. Jia thinks she will definitely teach the bullying students a lesson. After class, Xiao and Jia walk outside and talk. Jia says that Lee troubles her at home. If he comes in front of her now, she will punch him. Jia is demonstrating the action. Just then, Lee actually comes in front of her, and she punches him in the face. Seeing this, Jia almost falls, but Chen catches her. Seeing Chen, Xiao pretends to faint and falls down. Then Lee sees her and says she's Lee's maid, and that's why she'll be punished. Jia says she hasn't yet agreed to be his maid. Then Lee tells her she needs to go get juice for the students in Class A. Chen says he'll help Jia, but Lee doesn't let him go. Jia says she'll do it herself. After they leave, Xiao gets up and says no one saw her. Then, Xiao and Jia bring a lot of juice cans and drop them in front of Lee. Lee says she has to distribute them to the Class A students. Chen tries to help her, but Jia says she'll do it herself. She goes into Section A and a dustbin falls on her. All the students laugh at her. Jia angrily throws the dustbin to the ground and all the students start pelting her with paper balls. Here, Xiao and Jia don't back down. They fight with them too. Then, rumors spread throughout the school about Jia and Lee's relationship, and they spread quickly. Some students say Jia is pregnant with Lee. Here, a girl named Wanzi overhears this and quickly goes to her best friend, Xinwei, and tells her all this. Xinwei tells Wanzi to go to Class B. In Class B, Jian is doing Wanzi's homework. Then, Wanzi arrives and starts hitting him and asking about Jia. Meanwhile, Chen is praising Jia. He thought she would need his help, but she fought those bullies alone. Chen walks her to class and leaves. While Wanzi is hitting Jian, Jia comes there and stops her. Then, Wanzi is about to hit her too, but Xinwei stops her and asks Jia, "Is she pregnant?" Jia replies, "Do you believe in rumors?" Xinwei replies, "She knows because Jia is a delivery girl. She will carry the Han family's baby. That could never happen. She should feel lucky that she's in this school now, and she's his classmate." With that, she leaves. Then, Jean thanks Jia. Jia says he too needs to stand up for himself. Here, Lee goes to his class and angrily says, "Someone planned to bully Jia." Everyone falls silent. Lee goes to Gao and puts down the dustbin because he knows he must have done it. Then rumors start spreading in his class too, about Jia being pregnant. Here, Jia says no one should believe rumors without confirmation. In the next scene, Xiao and Jia are having lunch. Some of their classmates arrive, having considered her a strong woman for daring to go against the bullies, and they befriend her. They bring her seafood, saying it will be good for her baby. Jia says there's no baby, but they refuse and say they'll keep it a secret. They insist she eat the seafood. Jia, unable to resist, starts eating. Xiao says she's allergic, but Jia still eats it. Meanwhile, we see Lee, who is looking at a pendant, and then we see flashbacks, where we see Lee with his ex-girlfriend. They are making wishes together with a broken star. Lee tells his girlfriend to tell him all her wishes, and Lee will fulfill them. Now, at present, while looking at the pendant, Lee says, "I want to fulfill all her wishes," but he doesn't know where his girlfriend is. Next, we see Jia, who is taking Tien's class. She's feeling very itchy. Tien is showing her a vase that's very expensive. Xiao asks Jia, "Why did you eat seafood?" Jia says, "They said it so lovingly. I couldn't refuse." Then, Tien tells Jia to take a closer look at the vase. Jia goes, but she's feeling very itchy. Sir tells her that if she does it like that, the vase will fall off. Jia puts the vase back and starts to leave. But while putting it back, she has such an allergic reaction that the vase falls off her hand. In the next scene, Tien asks Jia, "What will I tell the principal?" Jia says, "I will pay for it." But Tien refuses and tells her to leave. When Jia comes to class, her friends ask her, "What did the principal say?" Jia says, "Tien said nothing and didn't even ask me to pay." Then Xiao suggests, "Let's go to a nice dinner together." Just then, Chen arrives. Everyone asks him to go too. Jia refuses, and everyone insists. But Jia agrees on one condition. Everyone must go wherever she takes them. Then, everyone agrees. After that, at night, Jia takes them to a local restaurant. Everyone says it's a very cheap place, but Xiao and Jia like it. Then, Jia's childhood friend Chen Wu also arrives. Jia introduces Chen Wu to everyone. Seeing their closeness, Chen was jealous. Here, Ms. Han was waiting for Jia. Li asked, "Why are you worried?" Jia had gone out with her friends, but Ms. Han said she was his mother, so she was worried and asked Li to bring him home. Li said his telescope had arrived, so she couldn't blackmail him anymore. Ms. Han said, "I will have the servant deliver it to him at kindergarten." Hearing this, Li agreed to go. Here, she asked Chen Wu, "Why do you have bandages on your head?" But Chen Wu ignored it. Then, Chen said, "Li's call had come? He's coming too." Jia's friends started teasing him, saying, "His brother-in-law is coming." Hearing this, Chen Wu was shocked and got up and left. Chen was noticing this. Chen Wu approaches some men and says, "I came with my friends, so I should leave." But the man insists, "I'll leave only after getting Chen Wu's money." Chen Wu replies, "You did the wrong hairstyle, so how can you blackmail me like this?" Just then, Jia arrives and asks, "Did he hit Chen Wu?" The man says, "Chen Wu ruined my hairstyle." Hearing this, Jia starts fighting with him. Seeing them, all of Jia's friends come, and a fight breaks out between the two groups. A boy is about to hit Jia with a stick. Then, Li intervenes and starts hitting him. He then tells all the girls to leave. Li, Chen Wu, and Chen start fighting with them. But then, the other group has called even more people. Li says, "It's best to use our brain and escape," and the three of them leave from there. After that, Li is injured. Jia comes to his room and gives him medicine. Mrs. Han tries to eavesdrop on their conversation. Li sees her. Mrs. Han says she was just looking for her earring. With this, she leaves. Jia apologizes to Li. Li says she suffered because of him. She needs to leave this house quickly. Jia says she'll find a house, then she'll leave. With that, she leaves. The next day, Jia is on her way to school when Chen comes to her. Jia apologizes for last night. Chen tells her not to think so much. He asks, "And why is she sad?" Jia says she needs a house. She doesn't want to stay at Li's house. Then, Chen tells her to go with him after class. He has a very nice house. Jia refuses, but Chen says, doesn't she consider him a friend? If she does, she'll have to go. Then, Jia agrees. Chen takes her to her grandmother's house. That house was very close to the school. Her grandmother is a fashion designer. Now she's not here. That's why Jia can stay here. Jia gets excited seeing the dresses and machines because her parents graduated from the same school and were fashion designers. She also loves doing this. Jia thanks Chen for the house. Chen says Jia will have to give him something in return. Jia says he can ask for anything except marriage. Chen asks her to go out for the weekend, on which Jia agrees. Then, Jia tells Ms. Han about her move. Ms. Han is reluctant to let her go, but Li is overjoyed. Ms. Han says, "Mr. Han is still in America? He hasn't recovered. If Jia leaves without meeting him, he will divorce her." Li says, "Don't lie like that." Ms. Han ignores him and tells Jia to wait for Mr. Han to come, and Jia agrees. Then, Li tells Jia that she won't be late after his dad arrives and that she needs to leave the house. Jia says she's not interested in staying with him either. Then, on the weekend, Chen comes to pick Jia up, and Li is about to go with them. Jia starts singing loudly in the car and very out of tune. Li asks, why are they taking her along? Chen says he should have gone with Jia, but he interrupted. Hearing this, Li falls silent. Then, the three of them have come camping. They have a lot of fun together. Li teases Jia a lot. Then, they sit together and look at the stars. Jia becomes very excited. Li remembers his ex-girlfriend, who also used to love stars. Jia tells them a story her mother told her. Mars had a daughter who was lost. He then found her with the help of the stars. Jia was gone. When Jia was little, her mother used to tell her this story. She asks her mother if her father would come to look for her. Her mother, emotionally speaking, says yes. Hearing all this, Li refuses to believe such stories. On the other side, Wanzi tells Xinwei about Jia and Li's camping trip. Xinwei says Chen went with her, and she doesn't have to prove herself a bully to him. Jia just lives in Li's house, but that doesn't mean Li will marry her. Then, Wanzi talks about Li's ex, but Xinwei tells her to keep quiet. She can't let anyone come between her and Li. She decides to take revenge on Jia. The next day, Jia comes to school. All the students leave the class in fear. In the classroom, Jia sees blood on her bench. There's a knife too. Jia starts looking at it. The other students tell her not to touch it, but Jia touches the blood and sees that it's fake blood. Jia tells whoever is playing a game with her to get ready to play the game. Then, the students of classes A and B are having a farming class where they have to do farming. Xiao and Jia are talking to each other. Seeing this, Chen asks Li what they're talking about. Li says he's not interested in what they're saying. Then Chen says he doesn't like farming at all, so why did he come? Li says he just came for exercise. Then Jiang is carrying a trunk full of cabbages. Just then, Gao arrives, gets in, and tells him to take him away. Jia arrives, and Jiang tells her not to interrupt them. But Jia angrily kicks Gao. Gao pretends to be hurt. Wanzi and Xinwei also arrive and call for the teacher. The principal and Tien Sir arrive. They punish Jia for hitting Gao. Here, Xiao tells Zhang to tell the truth, but he says nothing. The principal punishes Gia by making her do all the farming alone. Gia agrees. Gia is farming alone during the summer. Her friends wanted to help her, but the principal wouldn't give them permission. Gia is working. Just then, Lee approaches her and says he can help her, but she must first beg from Lee. But Gia ignores him. Gia suddenly faints. Then, they all take her to the school medical center. Among the medical staff, there is a girl named Maria, a very modern and stylish woman. She checks Gia out. Gia regains consciousness. Then Chen says that Lee is completing the rest of her work. Gia feels very bad for Lee. Then Maria tells Gia to rest and goes outside. Sir Tien is there. From their conversation, it seems they're dating. Tien Sir says he can't protect his students. That's why he should protect Gia. Many students bully her, but Maria says if Tien Sir treats her well, she will help her too. Hearing this, Tien Sir smiles. Now Gia recovers and comes to class and tells everyone she's fine now, but no one pays any attention to her. Gia goes to her desk. All her books are torn up. Then Jiang gives her a piece of paper that says Gao had come here and did all this and threatened everyone not to talk to Gia. Gia took a stand for him, so he thanks her. Gia took the paper and tears well up in her eyes. Then Xiao comes and gives her lots of snacks, throws her torn books in the dustbin, and says she'll share them with her until her new books arrive. Gia becomes very upset, and Xiao is with her. Then they have a traditional Chinese tea class, where they're teaching how to make traditional tea. Xiao sits down with Chen and starts flirting with him. Gia goes to Tien Sir and confronts him about paying for the vase. But he says, it was fake. It's not worth much. If he told everyone in class it was fake, they wouldn't pay attention. Gia is overjoyed. Then Chen asks her, what happened? Gia tells him the same thing. Here, Lee is a little jealous seeing them together. Xinwei comes over and gives him tea, along with some expensive sushi. Xinwei offers Lee tea and sushi, but Lee's attention is on Gia. She doesn't know how to make tea properly, so she somehow manages to make it and asks Chen to try it. But Lee takes the tea and drinks it before Chen can. Xinwei gets up angrily, and Wanzi tells her that Gia is taking Xinwei's place. Lee, after drinking the tea, says, this is so weird. She doesn't even know how to make tea properly. Gia asks, who told him to drink? In the next scene, we see Gia going into Tienser's house with a gift. There were many paintings there. Gia praises the paintings. Tienser is shocked to see her there. Gia gives him the gift and apologizes for the vase. He tells her not to think about it anymore. Gia asks, why did he keep the painting like that? Tienser says, it was his passion, but not everyone's dreams come true. Gia likes one of the paintings, so Tienser gives it to her and tells her to keep it safe. He made it with great difficulty. Gia tells him she will keep this painting very well. After Gia leaves, Tienser opens the gift and sees that it contains the same vase that he broke. Why didn't he find this vase? Here, Gia is going inside the school. Just then, a flower tap is about to fall on her, but Chen arrives just in time and saves her. Chen sees someone has escaped from above. Chen says, someone wants to harm Gia. Then, they both talk about the incident while eating noodles at a shop. Gia asks Chen, why do you care so much about her? Chen's food is falling out of his mouth. Then Chen says, she's his best friend. That's why he wants to help her, and that he's already said yes to everything except marriage. Gia smiles and says she doesn't know what's going on in her life. Right now, she just wants to get out of Lee's house. On the other side, Miss Han is waiting for Gia. Lee asks, why are you so worried? She'll come back home. Ms. Han says Lee should find her and bring her back. Lee starts refusing. Ms. Han asks the servant to throw away her telescope, so Lee agrees, as he has no choice. He starts practicing at the gate. How can he scold Gia? But he sees Gia coming towards the house with Chen. Then, he runs past them and walks away. Chen and Gia are watching him. Then, Gia says goodbye to Chen and starts walking home. After that, Lee returns to Chen. Chen says he has something important to tell him. In the next scene, we see Chen at Lee's house, telling everyone about the attack on Gia. Ms. Han becomes very upset. She orders 10 bodyguards to accompany Gia to school for her safety. Lee says, why bodyguards? Call the armed forces too. Ms. Han says, that's not a bad idea. Lee says, it's a school. She can't go there with bodyguards. Lee says he'll take care of Gia, but Ms. Han must stop blackmailing him with the telescope, on which Ms. Han agrees. From the next day, Lee starts following Gia everywhere she goes. He even follows her to the bathroom, and all the girls surround her. He somehow manages to escape and goes to Class B to sit with her. Xiao asks Gia, why is Lee following her? Gia says Ms. Han told him to. Then Lee sees someone outside the class, and suddenly, Lee grabs Gia's hand and says Gia is his girlfriend, so no one should try to harm her. Hearing this, Gia pushes him away, but Lee kisses her hand. Gia wipes her hand. Gia sneaks out of the school, hiding from Lee. Just then, A girl named Yue Ran arrives. She is about to stab Jia with a knife when Lee arrives. Yue Ran begins to cry upon seeing him and says she loves Lee very much. How could he kiss Jia? Lee tells her to stay out of his life, but Yue Ran is furious with Jia. She tells him how much Tien has lost because of her. That vase was very expensive. That's why Tien will have to give all his income and savings to the school. Hearing this, Jia is shocked and realizes the fake blood on the desk and the flower that Yue Ran threw at her. Hearing rumors from the school, Gao arrives and takes Yue Ran with him. Jia also leaves, very upset. Then, Jia goes to see Chen Wu. Chen Wu asks her if she's been sad ever since she moved in with the Han family. Jia says she needs a job so she can pay Tien. Chen Wu agrees to help her. Here, we see Gao, who goes to a room with a lot of security. He goes into the room and finds Yue Ran there. Then she starts crying and asks, why has he kept her here? She wants to go to Lee. She loves him very much. Then Gao hugs her and says he loves her as much as she loves Lee. The next day, Chen Wu picks Jia up from school and they leave together. Lee tells the bodyguard that Jia has gone with someone else, so he will also go home. Here, Chen Wu gets Jia a job at a car wash shop. Jia earns a good income working there. She works very hard. Jia comes home very late at night, and Lee is waiting for her, but he pretends he was just sitting there. Just then, Ms. Han arrives and tells Jia not to stay out so late. Jia apologizes and goes to her room. The next day, Jia was back at her job. The owner was very pleased with Jia's work. He also instructs the male staff to work just as hard. Then, they start pouring water on Jia and speaking to her with malicious intent. Just then, Lee and Chen arrive. Chen makes Jia wear his jacket. Lee tells the staff that if they don't wash his car properly, they'll lose their jobs. The staff, frightened, start working quickly. Chen tells Jia she doesn't need to work here. He'll pay Tien, but Jia refuses to take the money. Chen says it's okay. He has another job where no one will bother him. Then, we see Jia at Maria's clinic. She will work as a nurse with Maria. Maria tells Chen he can leave now. She wants Jia to do the lady stalking. Chen leaves as well. Maria whispers something into Jia's ear. Then we see several male students from the school. To get treatment from Maria, they pretend to be unwell. So, Jia, dressed in heels, appears before them, posing as Maria. She then comes out and scares them with huge scissors, causing the students to run away. Then, Maria and Jia are talking together, and Maria reveals that she's working for Tien. He's very nice, and she tells him her story. When she was in Japan, she had a friend who liked her very much, but she rejected him. Then, that friend met someone else in Japan, and now they're very happy together. They even have children. Maria explains to Jia that what's destined will happen, and soulmates are meant to be together. Jia decides she'll continue to help Tien. Jia takes an application to the principal, saying that Class B has prepared an art exhibition, where a famous artist's paintings are to be displayed. Principal refuses permission because there's no vacant space. Jia mentions the basketball court. The principal says there's a vacant space. Jia then asks them to sign an appreciation letter. The principal agrees. Then, Jia is preparing for Tien-'s painting exhibition. Lee sees how hard she's working. Xiao also helps her a lot, but neither Tien nor the principal knows about it yet. Xiao and Jia are together handing out Tien-'s exhibition templates. Jia's friends also say Jia is doing all this for Class B. They should also help her. But when they go to them, Gao arrives, and seeing him, they leave in fear. Then, Gao tells Jia that he had pretended to be injured, but he won't let her survive in school. Jia is about to hit him back, but Xiao stops her. Otherwise, their exhibition will be a problem again. Then, Gao takes the templates from her hand and throws them on the ground. Jia starts picking them up. Just then, Lee arrives and tells Gao that everyone knows about his relationship with her, so he shouldn't bother her. Then, Lee leaves without saying anything to Jia. Jia starts giving the templates again. Just then, Tien arrives. He sees the templates, takes them, and refuses to allow the exhibition. Jia tries to convince him and apologizes, saying she's suffered a lot because of her, and she wants to share his passion with everyone. Tien says she lied to the principal. If he finds out, he'll expel both him and Jia from school. Jia says she'll handle it later, but she'll still hold the exhibition, and Tien will have to attend. With that, she leaves. Tien becomes upset. Jia is also preparing for the exhibition at home. Ms. Han asks her why she's working so hard, but Jia doesn't say anything. Lee says she's doing schoolwork and shouldn't bother Jia. Ms. Han agrees. Then, at night, Lee comes out of the shower and is eating an apple. Jia knocks on his door and he opens it. Jia thanks him for helping and says he's not that bad. Hearing this, an apple falls from Lee's mouth onto Jia's face, and Jia starts wiping it off with his towel. Just then, Ms. Han is also happy to see them together. Lee gives them a nod that it's not what she thinks, but Ms. Han doesn't understand his hint. Next, Jia, Xiao, and Chen decorate the basketball court beautifully. Jia says there's only one thing left to do. All the paintings from Tien house need to be brought here. and she assigns Tien to do it. Tien says he has an idea. Lee was talking to someone on the phone and said he wanted Gia out of school. Then we see that Maria meets Tien and she starts flirting with him, saying she's been wanting to tell him something for a long time. Tien thinks Maria is about to confess. But Tien had asked Maria to hold Tien back for a while so he could take all the paintings to school. But here, word of Tien exhibition spreads throughout her mouth, and the principal also finds out and angrily storms out to the basketball court. Here, Tien asks Maria if she's going to confess to him, but Maria refuses and blurts out that Tien had told her to hold him here. He realizes this is all Gia's plan. He quickly leaves for the exhibition. Meanwhile, Gao arrives at the exhibition and starts bullying Gia. Xinwei also arrives and says the principal will expel her from school because she broke school rules. Just then, the principal arrives and scolds Gia for lying to him about getting his signature. Tien arrives and refuses to scold Gia. He says he's never protected his students, but he will protect them now. He tells Gia not to say anything. Just then, Lee arrives and says he'll get the principal's permission. But first, Gia must play a basketball match with him. If Gia scores more points than him in 30 minutes, he'll allow her to hold the exhibition. Otherwise, Gia will have to kneel down. Gia says she'll never do this, and she agrees to the match. The match begins, and it's very easy for Lee to beat Gia. He scores back-to-back points, but Gia can't keep up. Lee gives her a chance. If she scores even 1 point before 30 minutes, he'll be allowed to play the exhibition. Then, Gia returns to play, but just in time, his ball is put in the basket. The students in Class A claim Gia didn't win, but the referee is Tien, so he awards the points to Gia. Then, an argument ensues between the students in classes A and B. Lee tells everyone to shut up and admits defeat. Gia is granted permission to play the exhibition. Lee and Tien then leave. Tien thanks him for letting Gia win. Lee says he didn't do this for Gia, but he was thinking about something. When the dustbin fell on him that day, no one in the class knew Gia was going to be in class. So how did someone plan this? Tien says that means the dustbin was set up for them. Lee says maybe that's possible, but someone is helping Yueran to harass Gia here. Then they both start thinking about it. Lee says whoever it is, he'll find it and get it out. At the exhibition, all the students and the principal are against them and talk about expelling both Tien and Gia from school. Just then, Ms. Han arrives with her friends and tells the principal that she provides more than half the school's funds. That's why she gave Gia permission for the exhibition. The principal is unable to speak to them, and the students of Class A leave. Mr. San has told his friends to buy all the paintings. They start judging Tien paintings, but Gia refuses to listen to Tien. Ms. Han tells his friends to buy all the paintings quickly. Even they are unable to refuse Ms. Han. Next, Gia is in her class when Gia's classmate comes up to Gia and says that Tien is leaving school. Gia is shocked. Then, we see Tien, who is leaving because the principal has expelled him. Lee comes up to him and buys his last painting from him. Tien says that Gia is very good. She took such a big risk. Lee should take care of her. People only understand the value of something after losing it. With this, Tien leaves. Lee listens but doesn't know how to reply. Initially, Gia goes to Tien house, but no one is there. Tien leaves a letter for Gia. Gia begins to read the letter. Tien thanks Gia, saying that she changed Tien life. He resigned from school because he now wants to follow his passion. He will definitely come back to meet Gia. Gia is upset, but also happy for Tien. Next, Gia is in class. Xiao asks what's wrong with her. Gia says she feels like something terribly wrong is about to happen. Just then, Teacher Mai enters the class. Seeing Gia, he says, "I've known her since training day, and she's done so much by joining school." Teacher Mai asks Gia and Class B to write a self-criticism because they broke school rules. There we see Gao, who is in the principal's office, asking why Gia hasn't been expelled from school. The principal says Tien himself has resigned, and therefore he cannot punish Gia. Here, Tien and Lee are together. Tien asks Lee what Lee wants for her birthday. Lee says he is waiting for a gift from Gia. Tien says he has no money and so many problems. He will give her a gift on Gia's behalf. Lee says she lives in his house and won't die if she gives him a gift. Tien tells him not to be so strict. Then, Lee makes plans with his bodyguard at home. When Gia arrives, the bodyguard starts talking loudly about Lee's birthday party and what gift he wants. Lee says that even something expensive will do, but Gia ignores them and walks away. Lee goes to her room and starts talking loudly about the gift. Gia tells him to speak softly and walks away. The bodyguard asks Lee, why doesn't he invite Gia himself? Lee says he doesn't want to invite her. The bodyguard says Lee isn't inviting her because of his pride. Lee doesn't hear them and asks again. The bodyguard quickly leaves. Lee goes to Gia's room. Gia is writing self-criticisms for all the students. Lee gives her money. Gia thinks he's come to do something wrong to her. Lee says he has no such plans, only if she pays. He says Gia is his maid, so he's paying her. Gia returns half the money and says she doesn't need that much. He then tells her to keep it and leaves. The next day, Everyone at school is excited for Lee's birthday. The Class B students say Lee has never invited Class B students. Then, they ask Gia if she's going to go. Gia says she's not interested. Then, Lee arrives and invites Class B to the party. He tells Gia to come quickly. Gia refuses. But Lee says he's not interested. He's only talking about her mom and wants a gift. He even gave her money last night. Then, rumors start spreading throughout the school. Gia and Lee live together and are planning to announce their wedding on Lee's birthday. Here, Shinwei and Wanzi also hear this, and Shinwei decides to take revenge on Gia. Here, Gia agrees to Lee to come to the party, but first, she'll go to her old house, feed her cats there, and then return. Lee keeps talking about gifts to her. Gia gets angry. He's too talkative, and she leaves. Lee begins to wonder if he really talks too much. Next, Gia is feeding cats with Chen Wu. There's a wall where she writes her dreams. A mysterious person there constantly motivates Gia. Chen Wu says she'll achieve her dreams this way. Gia asks about Chen Wu's life. Chen Wu says he earns a meager salary at his salon. Therefore, he plans to save money and rent a shop and work on his own. Chen Wu gives Gia the money for her dress. All the dresses Gia designed were sold. Gia gives him half the money and tells him it's an investment for her shop. He can pay her back when he has it. Chen Wu says Gia has changed a lot, and they can work together and become rich. Then, Gia receives a call from Chen. She says goodbye to Chen Wu and goes to meet Chen. Chen brings her a dress. Gia starts designing a shirt for Lee using the dress. Next, Lee texts Chen to come to the party quickly. Lee is waiting for Gia and Chen at the party. Shinwei and Wanzi arrive. Shinwei starts following Lee. Just then, Gia and Chen arrive. Gia gives Lee her gift. Lee then thanks everyone for coming to the party and tells them to enjoy themselves. Shinwei asks Lee to play truth or dare with her and brings Gia along. Shinwei dares Gia to kiss any boy. Then, she must drink. Gia didn't want to drink, so Gia kisses Lee. Then, everyone looks at her. Ms. Han gets excited and starts taking their photo. Seeing this, Shinwei is shocked. Then, the game continues. Lee finds the truth. Chen asks Gia to ask her a question. Gia asks, when they talk about her at school, someone forbids her from talking about one person. Who is that person? Lee gets angry at this and gets up and leaves. Chen starts following her. Shinwei tells Gia that she has ruined Lee's mood, but she can't bear to see Lee hurt. She asks her to sing Lee's favorite song, Twinkle Twinkle. Here, Lee asks Chen if he told Gia about that person. Chen says that she is in the same school. She must have heard it from someone. Then, Gia starts singing the Twinkle Twinkle song, and she sings very out of tune. Seeing this, Shinwei smiles. Just then, Lee arrives and asks her why she sang that song. Gia says Shinwei said it was his favorite song, but Shinwei refuses, saying Lee is hurt, so she wouldn't do anything like that. Lee, in a rage, pushes Gia into the pool. Then, Chen saves her, and Ms. Han also arrives. She becomes angry at Lee and takes Gia away. Lee tells everyone to leave and says the party is over, so everyone leaves. A scene from Lee's past is shown. Lee is at church with his ex-girlfriend, Xiang Man. Lee tells Xiang Man they will get married after graduation. They will also go to England to study together. Then, we are shown a school program. Lee was supposed to perform with Xiang Man, but Chen announces that Xiang Man couldn't come for some reason. Lee then has to perform alone. After the show, Xiang Man comes to Lee and apologizes, saying she's going abroad for her studies. Lee says he'll be going with her, but Xiang Man refuses, saying she doesn't want to be with Lee. She wants to build her own career, not marry Lee, and didn't want to stay here for the rest of her life. Lee says he'll fulfill all her wishes, and if she wants to go, let her go. Lee will wait for her. But Xiang Man tells Lee not to wait for her. Xiang Man will never come back. Then, at present, we see the scene of the next morning. Gia starts avoiding Lee. Ms. Han tells Gia to talk to Lee, but Gia finishes her breakfast and hurries to school. Gia asks the bodyguard if Lee won't be going to school. The bodyguard says Lee has taken the day off from school today. Then, Gia gets into the car, and Lee watches her leave. Then, Lee opens Gia's gift, which is a shirt. He tries it on and finds some abusive words written on the back for Lee. Seeing this, Lee starts swearing. Gia starts sneezing and says she doesn't know who is saying what to her, and that Shinwei is probably going to do something bad to her at school today. Now, this news spreads throughout the school. Gia is a third person between Shinwei and Lee. When Gia comes to school, no one talks to her, and they ignore her. So she goes to class, and all the students leave. Gia doesn't understand. She sits down at her desk. But as soon as she sits down, she feels a pin prick and her hands get stuck to the bench. Gia starts screaming, and then Chen calls her. Gia somehow receives the phone with her mouth and calls Chen for help. Chen then helps Gia, and they both go to the terrace and start talking. Jia says Lee canceled a party for his ex-girlfriend yesterday. She's very important to him. Chen says she doesn't need to worry about that. She needs to stay away from Xinwei right now because she'll definitely try to harm her. Jia says she'll ignore her. Chen tells her to call him if she has any problems. Then, the students in classes A and B are having physical activities. Xinwei and Wanzi start talking. They're on their periods. That's why they can't do it. So, the teacher lets them go. Then, Xinwei and Wanzi start harassing Jia, trying to make her violent so Xinwei can complain to the teacher. Jia ignores her. However, Xinwei talks about Jia's mother, and Jia just pushes her away to continue walking, but she pretends Jia intentionally hit her. The teacher arrives and punishes Jia. Jia claims she didn't do anything like that, but the teacher doesn't listen to her, and then asks Jia to run around the playground. Jia runs angrily. Xiao follows her. All her friends try to approach her, but Teacher Mai threatens them, and they leave in fear. Here, Xinwei smiles and sits there, looking at Jia. Wanzi goes to get juice for them both. The students of Class B ask Teacher Mai not to punish Jia because she didn't do anything. But Teacher Mai has a different kind of animosity towards Jia. She warns everyone that if they help Jia, they will all be punished. Hearing this, the students are unable to say anything. Lee also arrives at school and meets Chen. Lee says he came to meet Jia. How did she get him such a shirt? Chen laughs. Then, Wanzi starts leaving with juice. Chen asks her about Jia. Wanzi accidentally slips the word track out of her mouth and says she saw Jia in the library. Then, Wanzi quickly goes to tell Xinwei that Lee has come to school. Lee arrives at the library and finds it closed. Chen says Wanzi said something about track. Maybe Jia is in trouble. Here, Wanzi goes to Xinwei, and Xinwei starts talking without looking. She's having so much fun watching Jia run around in the sun. Lee says, "You're having too much fun." Xinwei is shocked. Chen quickly goes to Jia to stop her. Lee goes to her too. Jia is very tired, but she still has 2 more rounds left. Lee tells her to go home, but Jia refuses. Then, Lee quickly picks her up and starts taking her home. Xinwei's face falls when she sees them close. Lee brings Jia home. Ms. Han is alarmed to see her. Lee says nothing has happened to her. She's just tired. Then, Lee takes her to her bedroom. Ms. Han starts questioning Chen. Chen tells them everything. Ms. Han misunderstands Lee. The bodyguard says, but Lee has started caring for Jia. Maybe he's even starting to like her. Chen is shocked to hear this. Ms. Han is also happy to hear this and goes to Jia's room. Chen starts asking the bodyguard about what he means by liking. The bodyguard says Ms. Han has decided on Lee's marriage to Jia. Chen is even more shocked. Here, Lee asks Jia why she needed to run away. Jia says the teacher told her to. Lee says he wants to protect her. Will Jia date him? Jia is shocked and pushes him away. Lee calls the doctor and asks him to come. The doctor says he will be late. Lee says he will send a helicopter. Here, Ms. Han was trying to listen to their conversation. Just then, the doctor arrives and starts talking to Ms. Han. Just then, Lee opens the door and asks if she was listening in. Ms. Han denies it. Lee asks the doctor to check. Then, he sits with Chen. Chen starts asking him if he likes Jia, but Lee refuses, saying that Jia lives in his house, so it's his responsibility to protect her. Hearing this, Chen smiles and asks, when will Mr. Han come? Lee says, in a few days. Chen says, okay, then he'll take Jia with him and introduce her to her family. Lee doesn't reply to this. Then, the doctor comes and tells Lee, Jia needs rest. She's fine now. Lee is thinking about Chen's words and says he won't let Jia go anywhere. Then, he hears Jia screaming. Lee enters her room and Jia is lying face down. Lee, without noticing, starts walking over her towards the bed. Jia starts yelling at him loudly, and Lee asks, what is she doing down there? Jia says she got up to drink water, but her legs couldn't hold her, and she slipped and fell. Lee was about to help her, but he told her to beg him first. Jia said, you remembered this even at this time? Jia says she doesn't need his help. Lee stands outside the door, and Jia can't get up. She starts screaming loudly, crying out in pain that no one helps her. Then, Lee feels pity, so he comes in, and Jia grabs his leg and tries to stand up. But Lee too loses balance and falls with Jia on top of him. Just then, Ms. Han comes in, and seeing them like this, misunderstands. She wishes them both goodnight with smiles and tells them to lock the room. They try to convince her that it's not what she thinks, but Ms. Han ignores them and leaves. The next day, when they go to school, no one talks to anyone. The bodyguards ask them why they're so quiet today. Jia says she's feeling a little unwell. At school, Jia is with Maria and tells her that Lee suddenly confessed to her about dating, but she's at a loss for what to do. Maria tries to convince her that if she likes Lee, she should tell him, or she'll be late. But Jia herself doesn't know if she even likes Lee, and maybe Lee is only doing this at Ms. Han's behest. Then, we see Chen and Lee, who are with Shinwei. Lee asks Shinwei if Jia was punished because of her. Shinwei lies and says she doesn't know. She even went to the teacher to ask for Jia's punishment to be reduced, but the teacher didn't listen. Lee says he's giving her one last chance. She has to protect Jia. If anything happens to her, the blame will fall on Shinwei. With this, Lee and Chen leave. Shinwei is furious. Just then, Lee's phone rings. Lee had forgotten his phone. It's Ms. Han calling, but he doesn't answer. Then, Ms. Han texts him, telling him to pick up Jia, but Shinwei sees the text. Ms. Han calls Jia and tells her to wait at the school gate. Then, she talks to Lee's dad, who is also returning to the country. Here, Jia is waiting for Lee in the rain. Just then, Lee's car arrives. Jia gets in, and Shinwei is inside. Shinwei says Lee told her to take care of her. Jia says she owns the same car as Lee. Shinwei says Lee and her family are of the same status. That's why Shinwei has the same things as Lee. Jia says you both are very capable, on which she says Lee doesn't understand this. First, he is after Xiangman, and now Jia. Lee likes you because you're like Xiangman. Hearing this, Jia tells her to stop the car. She needs to get out, but Shinwei tells her she's a very classless girl. She's Lee's maid, and she's even rented Chen's grandmother's house. How will she pay it? With her body? Jia asks her to stop the car, so Shinwei leaves her in a deserted place. Jia starts having stomach pains. She gets drenched in the rain and sits there. Meanwhile, Lee arrives home. Ms. Han asks him about Jia. Lee says he doesn't know where Jia is. Then, Ms. Han asks him to find her. Lee drives back to school and asks security. Security tells him the same car as Lee's came to pick Jia up. Lee remembers Shinwei has the same car. He starts driving quickly, and on the way, he sees Jia, drenched. Lee approaches her. Jia says she's on her period. Lee lets her in and asks where she was, why she was sitting here in this rain with her period. Jia tells him to take her home quickly, but Lee takes Jia to a hotel owned by the Han Group. He tells her to change in a room. Jia goes to the bathroom. Here, Lee tells the manager to bring pads through gesture, but the manager thinks he's talking about protection. Then, he orders Jia's wet clothes to be dry cleaned. Jia is in the bathroom when he starts talking to her from outside. He has an important conversation to discuss with her. Then, he starts telling her that he's starting to like her, and he doesn't know why. But now, he can't let her go with Chen. He has to protect Jia. He even tried on the shirt. He loved it, and whatever Shinwei told her, she should forget all that. But Jia doesn't respond. Lee asks if she fainted after hearing his confession. Then, he peeks inside. Jia wasn't there. She was taking a shower. Seeing Lee inside, Jia starts screaming. Lee asks if she didn't hear anything. Jia asks, what did he say? Just then, the manager arrives with Jia's clothes. Lee hands it to her in a bag containing protection. Jia sees it and kicks Lee. Lee gets hurt. He says he asked for pads. It's the manager's fault. Saying this, he starts getting pads for her himself, but he's feeling very embarrassed. But somehow, he manages to get inside the store. He's shocked by the variety, but somehow he buys one and gives it to Jia. Jia asks him to go back home. Lee says he ordered food. Jia had to go home, so Lee agrees. Then, they both return home. Ms. Han sees Jia and hugs her and takes her with her. Then, Ms. Han tells Jia about Xiangman. Lee, Chen, and Xiangman were very close friends, and Lee and Xiangman were in a very serious relationship. But one day, Xiangman left Lee. After that, Lee became so rude and cold, but since Jia came, he started talking again. Even though he's trying to get Jia out of the house, he's doing something. He's starting to like Jia. Jia asks if she's like Xiangman. Ms. Han says she's even nicer than her. Next, Jia is in his room thinking about all this. Here, Lee sees the pendant, puts it aside, and turns off the lights. Jia is very upset and confused. She comes to her old house and looks at her wish wall. Just then, she sees Chen Wu with the same bully girls, and one of them confesses to Chen Wu. But Chen rejects her. The girl says she likes Jia, which is why he's rejecting her, on which Chen Wu says yes. In the next scene, Jia is at the clinic with Maria, but she hasn't been doing anything well. When Maria asks her to get a bandage, Jia gives her scissors. Maria tells her to rest. Then, Jia is sitting alone. Maria comes to her and says she still regrets it. She rejected her college friend, and she didn't say anything to Tien either. Jia asks if she likes Tien's sir. Maria begins to change the topic, trying to make sure Jia doesn't get late and doesn't regret it in the future. She needs to make a decision now. Just then, Xiao calls out to her. Jia says goodbye to Maria and leaves. Then, Jia returns to school. Sad. Jia's class exams are over. The teachers are announcing their marks. Teacher Mai says Jia scored the highest, but she knows Jia cheated. However, Jia stands up for herself and says she didn't cheat, but Teacher Mai doesn't listen. Jia says she'll take the exam again and prove it to everyone. Teacher Mai also agrees. Then, Jia takes the exam alone, and Teacher Mai checks her test paper with another teacher. All her answers are correct, but she had one answer with a different rule. All the teachers declare it correct, but Teacher Mai doesn't believe it. Then, Teacher Mai comes into the class and says one of Jia's answers was wrong. She didn't follow the steps properly. Jia says Teacher Mai doesn't know how to teach well, which is why she didn't mark that answer. Teacher Mai gets angry at her. Jia challenges Teacher Mai. She and Class B will both come first in the district this time. All the students and Teacher Mai are shocked. Then, Teacher Mai also accepts the challenge and says that if Jia loses, she will be expelled from school. After the teacher leaves, Jia tells all the students to study hard. However, the students are not interested in this because every year, Class A comes first in the district. Jia tells them that this time, they have to beat Class A. But the other students have no confidence in her. Next, Jia and Xiao are taking a class on how to eat Western-style food, but Jia doesn't know how to use a knife and spoon properly. Xin Wei and Wanzi start making fun of Jia, saying she cheated. The whole school knows this. Xiao says Jia didn't cheat. She took the exam again and will now bring Class B first in the district as well. Xin Wei and Wanzi laugh at this and say that Class B could never do this. Jia ignores her. The next day, in class, the girls are discussing their path to a beauty contest. Jia tells them to study chapters individually, but they don't want to. Jia doesn't know how to explain it to them. Jia gets upset. Xiao tells her they'll try to come first. Just then, Chen Wu arrives and offers to go to the game parlor with him. Jia's mood is spoiled, so she refuses. However, Xiao and Chen Wu force her to go to the game parlor. Even after arriving there, Jia isn't enjoying it. Xiao sees a boy who is very handsome and dancing very well. She starts looking at him. Just then, a thief runs away with Xiao's phone. Seeing this, the boy also goes to catch the thief, and Xiao also starts running after him. However, Jia mistakes the boy for a thief, and when the boy takes Xiao's phone from the thief, Jia arrives and starts hitting him, but Xiao stops her and explains everything. The boy smiles at Jia's school uniform. Then, Chen Wu takes Jia away. The next day, the same boy, named Yuan, who is a transfer student from America to Class B, arrives. Xiao is just staring at him. Then, Jia tells everyone about studying and starts giving out her notes. Jia also tells Yuan this. Yuan says he's a new student, so he's not interested right now. Jia says he's also a Class B student, so he needs to study too. Yuan challenges Jia and gives her 2 books, saying she'll study if she reads them in one night and answers all the questions he asks tomorrow. Everyone is shocked, as it was impossible to cover so much in one night, but Jia accepts the challenge. Then, while Jia is studying at night, Lee knocks on her door. In the next scene, Jia comes out and says in one breath, she has been challenged, so she has to study. Lee should not disturb her. Before Lee can understand anything, Jia closes the door. Then, Ms. Han tells him not to disturb Jia and let her study, so Lee leaves. The next day, Jia comes to class and gives Yuan a book, telling him he can ask questions from anywhere in it. Yuan starts asking questions at random, and Jia gives all the answers. All the students are shocked and start asking questions one by one. Jia tells everyone the answers are given, and everyone feels confident. Then, all the students start focusing on their studies. Jia is studying even in the car, but he says she might actually finish first. Initially, Yuan asks Jia to help him with English. Jia says, he's just come from America. Why does he need help? Yuan says, he had a translator there too. That's why he needs her help now. If Jia doesn't help, he won't write well on the exam. Jia then agrees and starts helping him. Just then, Lee and Chen arrive. Lee tells Jia he's come to help her. Jia says he's not there to help her, but to harass her. Chen says Lee has really come to help. Jia says she doesn't need his help. She can do everything alone. Lee says the biggest obstacle standing in her way to finishing first is Class A. Jia insists, but she doesn't consider them obstacles. Lee says he'll have a math competition with Jia right now. Let's see who wins. Jia agrees. Teacher Mai also arrives, and the competition begins. Both are solving the answers very well. Then, when Teacher Mai is checking the answers, they both got all the answers right, but Teacher Mai declares Lee the winner. All the students start protesting, but the teacher silences them. Jia tells everyone she's lost. Saying this, she leaves the class. Chen follows her and consoles her. Jia says Lee has everything. He's powerful. That's why Teacher Mai chose him. She's hurt, but what can she do? Chen says he wants to help her. Jia agrees to his help. Then, Chen says they'll tease Lee together, and they both start imagining all the ways they'll tease Lee, and then they both start laughing. All of Jia's friends come to her and cheer her on, saying they have complete confidence in Jia and that she will win this challenge. Jia and her friends promise together that they will definitely come first. Next, Xin Wei and Wanzi see the Class B students studying while jogging. Teacher Mai starts looking at the Class B students. Then, everyone is in class and studying quietly. Teacher Mai says Jia has really improved Class B. Xiao asks Chen to help, and Jia was helping Yuan. Now Xiao is confused because she was liking both Chen and Yuan. She's not focused on her studies. Seeing this, Jia asks Chen to help Yuan, and she tells Xiao to study. Xiao says she has to choose between Chen and Yuan. Jia says she will help her after the exam. Jia is at a bookstore when Yuan approaches her and starts talking. Just then, Li arrives and tells Yuan to stay away from Jia. She is his maid. Yuan says he will pay her and make Jia his, but Jia silences them both and tells Li that they are her friends. She can talk to whoever she wants. With this, she leaves. After he leaves, Li calls someone and asks them to find out everything about Yuan. Jia is then studying in her room, and Li is standing outside. Ms. Han asks what's wrong with her, but Li tells them to speak softly. Just then, Jia opens the door, but Li is hiding there. The next day, Jia is studying while eating. Before Li can say anything, she gets a call, and Jia starts talking on the call. Li is very jealous. At school, Yuan asks Jia to participate in a beauty contest. Jia says she's not interested. Yuan says every girl is taking it. You're good for this. Hearing this, the other girls in the class start beating Yuan, and Xiao defends her. Jia says she has to prepare for her exams now. She'll see about the contest later. Now, finally, exam day arrives, and all the students perform well. On results day, Xinwei and Wanzi check their results. This was the first time Class B came first in school, and Class A came second. But Class B didn't come first in the district. Xinwei sees that Chen and Li both got zeros. Seeing this, she smiles, because now Jia will be expelled from school because she lost the challenge. Here, Chen and Li are talking. Chen asks why Li got a 0. Li says because Chen got a 0. He didn't write anything on the exam to keep him company. Chen says he did it to help Jia, but she didn't come first in the district. Now, Teacher Mai will probably expel her. I will. Here, Teacher Mai is with Maria. Maria asks him if they'll expel Jia. Teacher Mai says that Jia has accomplished what he couldn't even do as a teacher. She made Class B top the exam. That's why he's so impressed with Jia. Then, Jia comes to Teacher Mai's office to meet him, and she apologizes. Just then, her friends arrive and plead with him not to punish Jia. The teacher asks everyone to leave and then speaks to Jia alone. He encourages her, saying that if she can bring Class B to the top, her name will be the first. He doesn't punish Jia and makes her the class leader. Hearing this, Jia is overjoyed. She comes out and sees Chen there. Jia tells him that she came to meet Teacher Mai. They're not expelling me from school. Then, Li comes and says that she's his maid, so no one will expel her without his permission. Yuan also arrives and says he wants to buy Jia from them. Jia tells them she's a human, not an object. Just then, Xiao arrives. Seeing her, Yuan runs away. Chen and Li also leave. Then Xiao gives Jia a letter from Tien Sir. Jia begins to read it alone. Tien Sir was at school today and was enjoying himself. He was missing Class B. He'll be back soon and see Jia. Jia becomes emotional after reading it. She's happy. Tien Sir is following his dream. Jia enters the class and everyone claps for her. They congratulate her on becoming the class leader and together promise to prepare well for the exam next time. Xiao and Jia are heading to the playground. Li and Chen are playing basketball there. All the girls follow them. Xinwei starts walking behind them. Li refuses to follow her and leaves. Xinwei sees Jia and tells her she needs to talk to Jia alone. Jia tells Xiao to go. Xiao didn't want to go, but Jia sends her away. Then, Yuan asks her about Jia. Xiao says she's with Xinwei. She doesn't know if she'll bully her again. Hearing this, Yuan goes to Jia. Xinwei tells Jia she hasn't been expelled from school, but she lost. Then, Yuan arrives and tells Xinwei to stay away from Jia. Xinwei tells Jia to take the path to the beauty contest. Jia refuses. Xinwei says Jia is scared, so she won't. Yuan says Jia will take the path and win. Jia didn't want to take the path, but she also wanted to defeat Xinwei, so she agrees. Then, Yuan goes to Class B and announces that Jia will be participating in a beauty pageant. Everyone cheers her on. Jia lacks confidence in herself. She goes to Maria. Maria says she can do it and looks her over, saying she'll need to change a little, but it'll be fine. Then, they all teach her how to walk the ramp. Chen brings her many stylish dresses. Jia says they won't fit her. Chen says he'll take Jia shopping. She should be ready. Jia agrees. Next, Jia is at home, eating her dinner quickly. Ms. Han tells her to eat slowly. Jia says she has to go shopping with Chen. He's waiting for her. Li says he can take her along, but Jia refuses and leaves. Ms. Han tells Li that he's not even chasing her. You'll see. Chen will confess to her. Then, Li calls Xinwei and asks her to go shopping. Ms. Xian smiles and says that Li has started caring about Jia now. Now, Xinwei is very happy with Li at the mall. She holds his hand, but Li starts walking away, looking for Chen and Jia. Xinwei tells him to choose a dress, but Li pays no attention to her. Then he sees Chen, Jia, Yuan, and Xiao together, and Li takes Xinwei's hand to show Jia. Then, they all start shopping together. The girls are choosing dresses one after another, but the boys are feeling bored, with the 3 boys focused only on Jia. Then, they do a lot of shopping. There's a ghost house there. Yuan tells everyone to go there, but Li refuses. Jia asks if he's scared, but he agrees to show her. Then, they go inside, and it's very dark. Many people were scaring everyone in costumes, and the darkness caused everyone to separate. Gia and Lee were together. Gia then asks Lee if he's scared. Lee denies it. Gia then shows him that he was holding her hand very tightly. Lee turns on a projector to illuminate the room, and photos of many celebrities appear. He's very handsome. Lee looks at Gia, and he's about to kiss her, but then a ghost appears. So, they both punch him. Then, all the ghosts together drive them all out of the ghost house. Gia and Lee return home. Ms. Han asks why she didn't tell her earlier. She's participating in a contest and has a lot of clothes. She'll let her try them on. After that, Lee had run out of body lotion, so he goes to Gia's room. But Gia isn't there, and Gia's undergarments are on her bed. Lee ignores them and is about to take the lotion, but the lotion accidentally spills on her clothes, so Lee starts cleaning it up. Just then, Gia arrives, and seeing him in this state, quickly takes his clothes. Just then, Ms. Han arrives, and seeing them like this, wishes them well again, and leaves. He tries to explain that it's nothing, but she doesn't listen. Next, Gia goes to feed her cat. There, someone has written a message for her again on a wall. She also asks him to say his name. Then, she sees Chen Wu with the same bully. Chen Wu apologizes for not telling her earlier that they are now dating. Gia congratulates them. She tells Chen Wu about the contest and how nervous she is. Chen Wu reassures her, saying she's very beautiful and doesn't need to worry. She'll win. Hearing this, Gia's confidence lifts a bit. She says goodbye and returns to the wall. Here, we see Lee writing a message for Gia on the wall. He writes, "I won't tell Gia his name," and Gia's pendant falls from his pocket. After that, Gia returns and sees the message, writing on the wall, "If he doesn't tell his name, how will they meet?" When Lee doesn't find the pendant, he returns and sees Gia writing. He doesn't approach her. After Gia leaves, he returns, takes his pendant, and smiles at Gia's message. Then, the day of the beauty contest arrives, and all the students perform very well. Gia's friends support her. Gia dances very well. She feels great. She becomes emotional, seeing how many people are supporting her. Then, we are shown a scene at the airport, where Xiangman has returned to the country. Here, Gia's friends are sharing Gia's happiness because she has now reached the finals. Xinwei arrives and tells Gia that she has made it to the finals, but she will not win the contest. Gia also challenges that she will win the contest. Gia goes to her class. There are many gifts and flowers for her. Zhang says that all these gifts were sent by her fans. She gives all the gifts to Zhang and tells him to throw them out. Then, in the finals, the host calls all the contestants one by one so that they can share their journey. Xinwei goes first and gives a great speech. When Gia's turn comes, Xinwei gives a signal to Wanzi. Then, Gia comes on stage and begins her speech. Just then, a video plays in the background, showing her and Chen Wu, and Gia looks ugly in wigs. Yuan tries to turn it off, but Gia tells everyone that the video is from when she was little. Her dad had left her. Her mom and she lived together. Back then, the other kids used to bully her a lot. She used to get very angry, but one day she sees that her mom is also being bullied. But her mom always smiled. From that day on, she learned to play the combo and wore the wig so that no one would talk to her or bully her. Everyone there becomes emotional and claps for Gia. Gia arrives in the room for the next round, but someone has torn her dress. Gia and Xiao are shocked. Xinwei and Wanzi tell them that she is now out of the competition. Gia quickly begins sewing her dress with a stretching machine. Xiao waits outside. Chen and Li arrive. Xiao explains everything to them. Then, Chen tells Gia he will get a new dress. But Gia doesn't have that much time. She looks at Li and asks him to help her. Li says he will perform himself and play the Twinkle Twinkle song on the piano, giving Gia time. Hearing this, Gia smiles. Then, Chen leaves. Just then, some bodyguards approach him and say that Master has called him. They take Chen with them. Here, Li goes on stage to perform, thinking about Gia. Then, a girl wearing a mask arrives, and Li, mistaking her for Gia, begins to confess to her. He is so impressed with Gia, but then the girl removes her mask, and it's revealed to be Xiangman. Li and all the students are shocked, especially Xinwei and Wanzi. On the other side, Xiao is practicing how she will confess to Yuan. Just then, she overhears Yuan practicing. He is confessing to Gia. Xiao is heartbroken and doesn't say anything to him. Gia is adjusting her dress when she receives a call. A man on the other side tells her that he has information about her father. If Gia wants to know, she should hurry outside the school. Gia leaves everything and goes out of the school, but no one is there. Just then, a car arrives and kidnaps her. With this, the season 1 of this drama ends here.